Well, greetings, and once again, welcome to the 2021 Falcone Festival. My name is Jerry Young, and I'm a longtime member of the Falcone Festival Board, and it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Brian Bowman back to the festival today. Dr.
Hello.
Bowman, there he is. Dr. Bowman was the festival's very first guest artist back in 1986, and he returned as guest artist for the 10th, 15th, and 35th festivals. But he has also assisted the festival in a variety of ways over the years, in addition to sending many great competitors to us. So welcome back, Brian.
Well, thank you, Jerry. It's great to be here.
Well, we have a lot of questions for you today and things for you to reflect upon, so we'll get right to that. Today, we'd like to have you reflect a bit both on your history with Mr. Falcone and with the festival. Your history with Mr. Falcone goes back to when you were very young. Tell us a little bit about your earliest encounters with him.
Well, actually, my earliest encounters were with his recordings. My father was the grade school band director and my first teacher. And when I was about 14, about a freshman in high school, he came home from the Midwest with his record album, Leonard Falcone and his baritone. And I downloaded, of course, that was the days before downloads, so I bought all the copies of all the solos and studied them with the recording and used several of them for the contest. And that was my first experience with him. Of course, then I obtained the other volumes. There's a lot of volumes available still of Leonard Falcone, and it was the first really professional euphonium recording I had heard. Later, when I was a senior in high school or a junior, I believe, the Michigan State Band came to my hometown of Dixon, Illinois, and played a concert in the auditorium. And I had the entire euphonium section stay at my house back in those early days. And they told me a little bit about Leonard Falcone and his teaching. And then one of his favorite sayings was, "Just not professional enough." And got a chance to know them and meet them a little bit. And that was my earliest connection with Dr. Falcone, although I didn't meet him personally until later. Later, when I was in my later times, I was a member of the Navy Band in Washington, D.C., and was voted in as the euphonium coordinator for TUBA, the earlier organization. And I noticed that on our faculty, our advisory board, there were no euphonium players, all tuba players. No tenor tuba players, as we were then called. I thought one of the most important people we could have on the board would be Leonard Falcone. The Navy Band was playing that year, 1971, at the Midwest Clinic, and Leonard Falcone was there, and so I managed to schedule a meeting with him or interview with him. I talked to him about being a member of the board of advisors for TUBA. We had a nice meeting. It was very complimentary about the Navy Band. He says euphonium sounded really good. And then we talked about the Tuba's Universal Brotherhood Association. And he says, "Well, you know, Brian, Italians, to us who are Italians, brotherhood doesn't always have a positive connotation. It means something else, like a mafioso type thing." And I assured him that the word brotherhood did not mean that in the TUBA association. So he agreed to be perhaps one of the first euphonium members of the TUBA advisory board. And so that was my first association with him. Later, he came to the American Bandmasters Association several years later. This was after he had retired, and conducted the Air Force Band in an Italian arrangement done by his brother of a wonderful tone poem. And as he walked to the podium, those of us in the band were wondering whether he would really make it or not, because he was walking so slowly and sort of hunched over. And he came to the podium and he grabbed the baton and the hands came up and he straightened up and he was like 30 years younger, conducted beautifully, did a wonderful conducting job, and then put the baton down and became the old man again and could hardly make it off the stage. So that was a wonderful experience with him in his later years. Later that week, he was hospitalized because he was ill. I went to see him at the hospital with his wife and had a nice talk with him then. And so, although I never had the opportunity to study with him personally, I studied with him via his recordings and via his information and through the associations that we had thereafter.
Well, that's wonderful that you got to have that much contact with him. A reminder to everyone who's watching this interview that Mr. Falcone's recordings in CD format are available through the festival. So, and every euphonium player should own those, I think.
Absolutely.
Very valuable material. So, Brian, you've been associated with the Falcone Festival almost from the very beginning. As I mentioned in the introduction, you were the very first guest artist back in 1986, and the very first artist division winner was your student, Angie Hunter, in fact. Your longtime support of the festival makes it obvious that you consider what the festival does to be important. What do you see as the most important aspects of the festival that the festival contributes to education in the profession?
Well, one of the biggest challenges we had with euphonium as I was growing up is that the only contests we had were the state, district, and state festivals organized by your current state, like in Illinois. Mm-hmm. There were no other competitions, no other chances to play solos for a judge that were readily available to the euphonium player. There were some in the other instruments and concerto competitions for piano, for voice, for violin, even for trumpet, but there were none for euphonium. So this became a great opportunity to have an opportunity to prepare literature for competitions where you could be judged and evaluated and give you an incentive to improve. I think it was one of the first ones that was available to us. And I had none of those growing up, so I thought this was a great opportunity for young people at this time.
I like to think that we've made a difference over the years with the opportunities. Your students have won the Artist Division Euphonium competition at least 15 times. Wow. And you've had at least 4 that I know of Euphonium student division winners. Many other former students of yours have been semifinalists, and some of those have won the silver or bronze medals. What role did the Falcone Festival competitions play in your curriculum at both Duquesne and University of North Texas?
Well, certainly this was a great opportunity for students to have an incentive to prepare to a higher degree rather than just a daily, weekly lesson assignment. And by having these goals, they would be encouraged to perfect themselves to a much higher degree than normally they would have in a weekly process. So I felt it was a great incentive and a great opportunity for them to develop themselves to a much higher degree as a soloist, also playing with the piano. They develop a lot of skills of ensemble and intonation as well as musicianship. I felt that it was one of the greatest aids to those people. And at times, I remember one year we had 8 or 9 out of the 10 finalists, and we got first, second, and third place in the artist division because all those students grabbed a hold of this and really took advantage of it and prepared themselves. We used to have sayings, we used to have sayings on how we should prepare. PAD was the favorite one. Pay attention to detail. This came from my son, who was in a drafting class in high school and used to get his papers, his mechanical drawings back with PAD written across the top, which his instructor told him, and if he made a 32nd of an inch difference in a line when you built the house, the corners may be 4 feet apart. And so paying attention to detail was one of the things they often would yell at each other in the car on the way up to Falcone, P-A-D, P-A-D. And we had a couple of others also like that, and they would really work on those things. I remember one year, 5 of the contestants were riding in one car and they had an accident. And the car was badly damaged, but they got another rental car and they made it to the Falcone competition, and one of them won the competition that year. So it was a great incentive for them, and a wonderful opportunity for them to prepare literature, not just one solo, but several solos. And so it was a great incentive for that. And I felt it was to their benefit. And of course, many of those winners are now in professional jobs, teaching and performing in the service bands. And so it really paid off.
I think that's such a great statement. Whether some of our listeners are professors or students in the euphonium and tuba world, I do think that this is a great approach. I mean, certainly there's a lot of great literature that we don't use in the Falcone Festival, but every year there's such a variety of material, and it's a great way to give focus in so many different ways as the school year goes by. I mean, maybe this is a redundant question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Has there been a specific method in your approach to preparing students for the competition? Or is a lot of what you do in lessons as the year goes by just your perennial successful method of preparing aspiring professionals for auditions?
Well, I think it's a matter of realizing that you have to be so good, you can't be denied. Or you have to prepare to the point where you are so well prepared that no one can find anything wrong with your performance. And to do that, you have to really have it prepared in advance. For instance, I would encourage them to memorize the music, to really learn it, and to have it prepared for performance at least 3 weeks to a month in advance of the competition, so they could spend the last month really polishing and working on it. And so preparation is the key. And this gave them an incentive to be prepared ahead of time, especially since it was during the summer. Some of them were gone and weren't able to have lessons during the summer. So by the end of the spring semester, they needed to have that material prepared and ready to go. Then they could spend the rest of the time polishing and making it feel much better. Too often, college performers prepare for a recital or something, and the first time they really perform it is at the recital itself. And to me, they need to perform it many, many times before the competition. I say, play for your grandmother, play for your neighbor, play for the dog, play for whoever will listen to you, and perform as if you were at the competition. And by having these performances ahead of time, they would have several opportunities to play in front of people. Many times, several students would have a recital in July of the Falcone music in their local community, where they would perform all that material for an audience. That gave them several advantages. First of all, the chance to get a little nervous for playing in front of people, to practice playing with the piano so they could have a good experience and not only learn the music, but learn the interludes so I knew when and not to come in. And so they were really prepared ahead of time. So there were lots of added bonuses to this opportunity to play for the Falcone competition.
That's just such fantastic advice. So often I've heard young performers, you can tell they're deciding on stage that I think I'm going to try this today. And that's usually not a good decision. Being prepared is everything. And I know how intensely you you prepared your students over the years. What are your fondest memories of your visits to Blue Lake and the festival?
Oh, I remember the first year we went. We stayed in a rather budget motel, I think it was, and everything was sort of. We were outside for some things and in small rooms for other things. So it was very homey. It was a very homey atmosphere. And other years, I remember playing a recital in the cafeteria. I think maybe that was the year I premiered the Blue Lake Fantasies. And I remember the perspiration was dripping off my nose by the end of the first three measures of the recital. And so it was really hot. It was very hot and humid. And but it was all right. Once you get soaking wet, it doesn't matter. It cools down. And of course, I enjoyed getting to know the students who performed, those who were not my students and other students, and of course the faculty and the members of the staff there were always very gracious and very accommodating. I remember going to the receptions afterwards at the home of the owner of the camp. We'd have nice receptions. It was nice always to bring my wife with me because it was nice to have her along and to enjoy that time. And the cafeteria was always a gas. You know, we had those metal trays. Remember those metal trays?
Oh, yes.
And going back and forth in the woods was always very delightful.
It's a beautiful place.
And I remember the ponds on the lake, you know, the lilies on the lake and other things on the lake. And I always felt bad that it wasn't really a swimming hole. But
yeah, there are pike in that lake.
Yes, I can imagine. Yeah, so it was a beautiful place to be. It was always, the first few times I drove up there, it was sort of a challenge to find the place because it wasn't easily found. But once you got there, it was a really great experience. So the things that I treasure most is getting to hear the students, getting to work with them, for the opportunities I had to perform for them, to play with the festival band and to play with pianists there and to have that opportunity to get to know a great body of people and also to remember the legacy of the first professional euphonium I had ever heard on record of Leonard Falcone and how his influence then was maintained after his passing and after his tenure at Michigan State. And so because of that, it is a great tribute to the legacy and the building of the legacy for the euphonium in the world. And the fact that it has lasted all this time and has been a great benefit to the euphonium. And we find there are lots of people preparing for these festivals now and preparing at a much higher level than before. And so the competition has sharpened and increased, which is good. I have a lesson on Wednesday with a young man from UNT who's going to the competition. And boy, he's better be getting it together because there's going to be a lot of competition there.
It's always such an exciting time, and you know, as Brian was reminiscing about the facilities and all that has also come a long way. You know, now we have the competitions in air conditioned comfort, and
right.
It's you know, you can enjoy all the beautiful outdoors because it's a rural setting, and you know, the camp is just a marvelous setting. For the campers as well as for our festival, and it's come a long ways. Our performance facilities, both outdoor and indoor, are so much nicer than they were, and we look forward to using them again in 2022. So absolutely. It's going to be great to go back live, and we're so looking forward to that. And for those of you who are students who are listening to this today, I hope you're getting a feeling of the magic that surrounds the festival. It's really a special place, and it's worth every minute that you put into preparation. Even if you don't get to the semifinals the first time or the second time, the effort that you put in to preparing is going to make you better. And somewhere down the road, if you prepare the way Brian is describing today, then maybe you'll join us there. It could be great. So, what are your hopes for the future of the festival as it continues to grow, Brian?
Well, I just hope that it will continue,
Mhm.
that it will not disappear. I remember one time I was speaking with another great euphoniumist, Harold Brash, who was probably the second person I talked to back in the early 70s about being on the board of advisors for TUBA. He said, well, Brian, these organizations, they come and they go. They just don't last. Well, he was wrong. TUBA has become ITEA and has lasted many, many years, over 20 years and 30 years almost. And so we are feeling the same thing for the Falcone competition. Hopefully that through the Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp, we'll be able to continue to support this. And as many of his students, former students, are approaching the age of maturity. And unfortunately, we lost one of the primary ones in just this last few months.
Right, Earl Lauder.
Earl Lauder, who was one of his first really fine professional students. But there are still others that are around, and others that remember him personally, and others that remember the influence that he had over them as musicians. And this is the important thing, to remember that Falcone was primarily a musician. And the fact that he played euphonium or baritone horn or violin or conducted, no matter what he did, the important aspect of what he was teaching and dealing with was musicality and the musicianship of the players. And this is the important things about the competition. It's not just playing the notes, it's how you play them and what they convey to the audience that make the difference in winning and not winning the competition. Many times, I know that several times as we were adjudicating, we'd have a student who perhaps missed a note or something, but played so tremendously musically that he would win over someone who played the notes accurately, but played them like they were in the refrigerator. And so this is an important aspect of the competition, to remember the musicality and the purpose of why we do music. And that is to communicate our ideas, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings to those who are listening. And Falcone competition gives an opportunity to develop those skills and develop them to the highest degree possible. And so I hope it will last forever, and it will go on and grow. And we'll still have the important thing after you and I are no longer here, Jerry, as we have gone on to the great band in the sky. Perhaps people will take over this opportunity to make this available to others. It all depends. It all depends on having the feeling of what is really important in our lives and what is really important in the lives of other people. How can we touch other people? How can we bring them together? In these days of diversity, I like to think of the days of unity, where we're not looking for differences in each other. We're looking for unification of each other, of working together to achieve a goal. And so I hope that this Falcone competition will continue to do that, to bring all people from all walks of life, all nationalities, all diversities together in a unison of purpose, of musicality, which will allow us to unite our inner selves, our souls, if you will, together through music, which is the international language.
This and for all of our listeners, this is what Brian has just articulated is something that we've really rededicated ourselves to on the Falcone board, especially over the past year. and we're optimistic. We have a wonderful board. We're bringing younger people onto our board who are going to we're going to see this thing through, as we are in our mid-30s now, and as such, we're looking forward to that. Down the road, maybe we'll be here for the 50th, Brian. Who knows? It could happen. Do you have any? Right. Are there any other thoughts you'd like to share before we close today?
Well, I'd just like to encourage people in their participation to look at the big picture. What are you really trying to accomplish, and how will this festival allow you to make forward steps towards your goals of what you want to become? It's always important to have goals, either the short-term or long-range goals of what you would like to accomplish with your life and how you can make a difference. I used to tell my students when they left, what would you have people say about you at your funeral? And then you want to make sure you live so they're saying the right things about you. And part of this participation in the festival, and I know that I've talked with many of my former students who have been involved with this festival, and perhaps they will be involved as the board members in the future too, that they are very interested in, none of them have ever regretted, even those who haven't, made it past the semifinals, ever participating in the festival. And what they've done is united themselves with other members, other participants, as well as judges and faculty here, and developed a network of musicality and personality that has aided them throughout their lives. And this network that you develop through participating in this is a very valuable thing in today's world, especially.
Indeed, so it is.
I think this is, there's so many benefits. There are no drawbacks and no negative aspects to participating in the festival.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us today, Brian, and for your ongoing support, your ongoing heartfelt support for the festival. We appreciate it so much, and we look forward to many more years of working all together to bring our cause forward. Well, yes,
I think it's a great opportunity for everyone involved.
Well, we will move forward, and again,
Gary, too, for all the work you have done. You and your wife have been very instrumental in making this happen.
Well,
we're appreciative of that.
It's been our pleasure to be part of this. It's my favorite thing that I'm part of. We just we enjoy our Falcone family so much. Well, at this point, we're going to go back to festival headquarters and get more information about our next scheduled event. Again, thank you for being with us today, Brian, and onward Falcone.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jerry.